Thanks very much, Sean. Hello. I'm delighted to welcome you to this joint webinar from the NIHR Innovation Observatory and NICE, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence. I'm Jill Norman. I'm a Principal Research Associate and the Programme Lead for Medicines at the Innovation Observatory. So I'm just going to run through some initial housekeeping before giving a brief introduction and then handing over to our expert speakers from IO and NICE. So first of all, please do enable the closed captioning if that's helpful to you. We're also recording this webinar and we'll be sharing it on our YouTube channel later. We'll send a link to that and a copy of the slides. So the slides will be available to you to reread or the webinar to rewatch if you wish. And by participating in the webinar, you are agreeing to it being recorded. We very much welcome questions. And we ask that you submit them via the Q&A channel. Please just use the chat function if you need to raise any technical difficulties you're experiencing or something like that. We'll hear from each of our speakers and then move to your questions at the end of all the presentations. But please do enter questions as they occur to you during the webinar. Can I have the next slide, please? So I'm going to introduce our expert speakers and then I'm going to give a brief introduction to the Innovation Observatory. We'll then cover our horizon scanning process for medicines and look at the relationship between the Innovation Observatory and NICE and our use of PharmaScan. We'll then talk about the new international recognition procedure and our approach to managing that to ensure that we keep timely processes going with this new channel. And then we'll move on to NICE as topic selection process and developments in their prioritization methods and approach. Can I have the next slide, please? So I'm very pleased to introduce our speakers from IO. First, Dr. Sarah Khan, who leads our Medicines Horizon Scanning team. That's our dedicated team who are responsible for identifying information about new technologies and new uses of technologies. Secondly, we'll be hearing from Shola Akinbilade, who leads our NICE process team, which is responsible for monitoring the technologies we've identified, engaging with the companies developing them, and producing technical briefings for NICE ahead of UK market authorization. Sarah's background's in medicine and Shola's is in pharmacy, and their expertise is absolutely key to our medicines programme. We're then going to hear from Stephanie Callahan, who is the Senior Manager for Horizon Scanning, Topic Selection and Scoping at NICE. Can I have the next slide, please? So just a little bit about the NIHR Innovation Observatory, or the IO. We are funded by the National Institute for Health and Care Research, NIHR. We are a National Horizon Scanning Centre, and we're lucky enough to be based at Newcastle University. So we identify and track innovations in health, and as well as medicines, this includes other types of innovations such as medical devices, diagnostics and digital technologies. But the focus of this webinar is very much on medicines. So if you have queries and questions about the DDD side of things, we are going to be holding something later in the year, which we're very happy to notify you about, that will speak much more to that. We work really closely with our stakeholders, which include NICE, to deliver timely information about and intelligence about health innovations which are in the pipeline towards market in the UK. We also undertake research to advance the methods and the tools available for horizon scanning to us and to other horizon scanning institutions. And we proactively identify emerging innovations and trends in health technologies. So I'm now going to let Sarah talk about our horizon scanning for medicines process. Sarah.
Thank you, Jill. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And as Jill said, I'm going to walk everyone through the horizon scanning process that the IO uses to identify medicines that are relevant to us. Next slide, please. So for those of us in this webinar who might not be very aware of what horizon scanning is, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what horizon scanning is in healthcare and how we use it at the IO for our process. So horizon scanning is an analytical method used in future forecasting, and it aims at predicting and dealing with uncertain events. It is vital for strategic planning or creating policies that could help us cope with future challenges. At the IO, we use this method to identify, prioritize, and filter innovative medicines and indications that could potentially come to the UK or EU. And horizon scanning as a process also allows the IO to inform our many stakeholders about disruptive technologies that would be coming to the UK market and could be used in NHS potentially. Next slide, please. Now, as we're all aware that clinical development ongoing in the healthcare sector, including medicines, is massive globally. So we need a remit to narrow down to technologies that would just be coming to the UK, or to technologies that have a likelihood of coming to the UK. So what we're interested in is new medicinal products or new biosimilars, new combinations. These combinations could be of new medicinal products or already approved medicinal products, new fixed dose combinations, or new line of treatment. We're also interested in new indications. These indications could be for new medicinal products or also for already approved medicinal products. New subgroups or mutations, new stage of disease, new populations such as age group or comorbidities. We are interested in clinical trials that are being conducted in UK, Europe, US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And now, since the launch of the IRB process by the MHRA earlier this year, which Shola will talk about more in her slides, we also look at clinical trials being held in Singapore and Japan only. In terms of clinical trial phase, we're looking for phase 1, 2, up to 3. Next slide, please. So this slide is a representation of all the sources that the IO uses to gather intelligence for medicines in clinical development. All of this information gathered from these sources goes into our bespoke database called MIND. I will talk about MIND a bit more in the next slide. But for now, I would like you to focus on the sources that are mentioned on this arc. So on the left side, you can see clinical trial registries, which is our biggest source of information for new technologies and also new indications. Company pipeline meetings, which are a big source of updates for already records that we might have on MIND, but they're also a good source of new information regarding new medicinal products that the company might think that we should be tracking, or new technology or new indications, both. We also keep our eye on regulatory agencies such as the EMA. EMA, as you might know, is the European Medicines Agency. We download reports from the EMA website every month regarding drug designations that have been granted that month, and the chamber opinions as well. The drug designations that we're interested in is the orphan drug designations and prime drug designations. We also run regular reports on UK PharmaScan, which is a database that is hosted by NICE, and Shola is going to talk about UK PharmaScan a bit in detail in her slide, so I'll leave it to her. We also keep our eyes on news media, which is a very good source of information in terms of trial results. So if any trials have failed and therefore we can stop tracking a certain technology or certain indication, or mergers and acquisitions between companies. So we can, using this piece of information, we can reach out to companies actively and ask them for their plans for coming to the UK. Also, MHRA drug designations. I haven't mentioned them earlier with EMA because this information does not come directly from the MHRA website, but more so from our stakeholders like NICE or the companies that we engage with. So next slide, please. So a bit about MIND now. MIND is the IO's Medicines Innovation Database. It contains thousands of records. Each record is an innovative medicine or a combination of medicines for a target indication. As I earlier said, it is a bespoke database. It's internally facing, and it provides the team with a very clear and complete picture of the clinical development and regulatory pathway of each technology. As of March 2024, MIND holds 21,000 technology records that are linked to 22,000 clinical trials, 7,500 medicinal products out of which 800 are potentially patents, 2,000 indications, and 2,200 companies and developers. Next slide, please. And with that, I'll hand it over to Shola, who will go over how we work with NICE.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. I'll now talk about how the Innovation Observatory work with the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence. NICE. Next slide, please. So technology appraisals are recommendations on the clinical and cost effectiveness of medicines and treatments for use in the NHS. And the Highly Specialized Technologies Program evaluates interventions for very rare conditions. So NICE produced technology appraisal and highly specialized technologies recommendations on new medicines, that is medicines unlicensed in the UK for any indication. And they also produce recommendations on repurposed medicines, which are medicines that have been licensed for use in a specific indication, but are now being used in another indication. NICE aims to publish the final guidance of technologies when the technologies are within 90 days of receiving marketing authorization or a UK product license from the MHRA, which is the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. We support the NICE technology appraisal and highly specialized technologies process by identifying and filtering, which is our horizon scanning process. And then we monitor, and then we produce produce technology briefings for all innovative medicines that meet the NICE criteria and are within 24 months of an estimated UK license date. So our horizon scanning process, monitoring, and NICE notification process are the 3 steps that precede the NICE topic selection process, which leads all the way to the production, the publishing of the NICE technology appraisal guidance. Next slide, please. So our 3-step IO process for NICE includes the identification of the health technologies, which is our horizon scanning process, where we identify, prioritize, and filter the technologies, which are then added on our database, the MIND. We actively monitor the technology records of MIND to look out for regulatory designations from authorities such as the MHRA, FDA, EMA. We also look out for the progression and results of the clinical trials between phases. We also engage with companies in the form of pipeline meetings or email correspondence to obtain information on the licensing timelines, regulatory procedures, or updates on the development of those technologies. We have also created a dashboard where we share monitoring information with the NICE topic selection team prior to submitting briefings. When the UK license date of a technology has been estimated to be within the next 3 years, this prompts our NICE notification process, where we prepare the technology briefing for submission to NICE. The beginning of our internal briefing process is where we allocate the briefing to an author who prepares the first draft of the briefing and then sends it to the company for a factual check. This is also the stage where we request for the company to provide comments on the briefing and to confirm the regulatory timelines and the procedure. We also request confirmation of the proposed indication from the company, and to also provide, if they could also provide any other information that would support the technology briefing. When the company's comments have been addressed and integrated into the briefing as required, then we prepare a confidential version of the briefing that is submitted to NICE at approximately 24 months to UK marketing authorization. This marks the end of our active monitoring of the technology after submission to NICE. We then prepare a non-confidential version of the briefing, which is a version in which every confidential information will have been removed, such as the regulatory dates and the procedure. Every confidential information that has been obtained from the company or from UK PharmaScan is also removed. The proposed indication, if marked as confidential, will also be taken out. And then this non-confidential version will be uploaded on the IO website. Next slide, please. I'll then move on to the UK PharmaScan, UKPS. The PharmaScan is a database of information on new medicines, indications, and formulations in the pharmaceutical pipeline. It's a confidential and secure platform that is only accessible to the manufacturer, NHS England, and horizon scanning organizations such as the Innovation Observatory. Pharmaceutical companies are required to enter data from 3 years before UK availability, or the start of phase 3 clinical trials, or the start of their pivotal phase 2 trials up until availability in the UK. Companies are also required to update the information on UK PharmaScan every 3 months or immediately when there are changes to their regulatory timelines or procedure. Next slide, please. The PharmaScan is an essential first step in securing market access for new and repurposed medicines. We use the PharmaScan to ensure that information we have on our database on new and repurposed medicines is up to date and is reliable. We also obtain regulatory timelines and procedure from the UK PharmaScan, and this we use to produce timely and accurate briefings to support the NICE technology appraisal and highly specialized technologies process. The Innovation Observatory also uses the PharmaScan to produce timely horizon scanning intelligence for other national organizations, such as the Department of Health and Social Care, Scottish Medicines Consortium, just to mention a few, and we support their decision-making and planning for the future. Next slide. I'll now move on to the new MHRA regulatory route, which is the International Recognition Procedure, the IRP. The IRP was initiated by the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, MHRA, on the 1st of January, 2024. The IRP replaces the ECDRP, which is the European Commission Decision Reliance Procedure. The ECDRP was initiated in 2021 following Brexit, and it allowed the MHRA rely on the decision-making of the European Commission to expedite approval of medicines for use in Great Britain. The MRDCRP, which is the Mutual Recognition Decentralized Reliance Procedure, will be incorporated under the umbrella of the IRP. So from 1st of January, the ECDRP will no longer exist and has been replaced by the IRP. The IRP allows the MHRA to rely on the expertise and the decision-making of trusted regulatory partners to expedite patients' access to safe and effective medicines in the UK. Next slide, please. The IRP is open to applicants that have already received a product license or a marketing authorization for the same product, that is the same active ingredient and excipient, the same formulation, the same route of administration. So it has to be approval from the same for the same product from one of the MHRA's specified reference regulators. And these reference regulators include authorities in the United States, the EU EEA, Australia, Japan, Switzerland, Singapore, and Canada. After the IRP submission has been validated by the MHRA may issue the UK approval within 60 or 110 calendar days, depending on eligibility for Recognition A timetable or Recognition B timetable. To be eligible for Recognition A timetable, the approval from the reference regulator must have been obtained within the last 2 years, while eligibility for Recognition B timetable requires approval from a reference regulator within the last 10 years. And this is among other criteria that have been specified by the MHRA. And of course, the MHRA retains the authority to reject any IRP submission if the evidence submitted is insufficient. The MHRA continues to operate other licensing routes, and these include the Access Consortium, Project Office, the ILAP, which is the Innovative Licensing and Access Pathway, and the National Procedure. Next slide, please. The UK PharmaScan has recently added options to accommodate this new IRP and the reference regulators, such that the regulatory procedure can be selected from the drop-down to choose the IRP and the reference regulator or any other regulatory route as required. And all this information, and of course, are confidential. Next slide. To manage the effect of the IRP and its short approval duration, we have modified our horizon scanning, monitoring, and NICE notification process. And the steps we have taken include the improvement of our new sifting and data gathering tools, such that our new search criteria has been expanded to include keywords such as the IRP and the 7 reference regulators. We also continue to audit the UK PharmaScan weekly to capture the IRP and any other regulatory timelines or procedures or changes or additions to the clinical information that is obtained on PharmaScan. And so we request that pharmaceutical industry engage early with us and also keep the information on PharmaScan up to date. We also will continue our effective technology and record monitoring process, and we'll continue to engage with companies so that we can continue to deliver our timely notification to NICE. We have also created a rapid response briefing team who will author, review, and quality assess our IRP briefings within the shortest possible time. Next slide. So if you'd like to contact us to discuss your technologies in development or to provide any updates regarding any of your technologies or to provide regulatory timelines and procedures, please drop us an email on info@io.nihr.ac.uk. I'll now hand over to Steph from NICE. Over to you, Steph. Thank you.
Thank you, Shola, Sarah and Jill. That was brilliant. I think even I learned things through that presentation. So thank you very much for such a clear and concise walk through what you do for NICE and some of the changes around the IRP. Great. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm hoping you can see my slides now on the screen. Let's switch over. For those who don't know me, my name's Stephanie Callahan. I'm the Senior Manager for Horizon Scanning, Topic Selection and Scoping at NICE. And I primarily focus on medicines. So as we said before, this is about medicines and our approach and working with the Innovation Observatory. So I'm just going to touch on the IRP as well. Just really, I want to give a bit of assurance about what we're doing at NICE to make sure we have timely guidance following the IRP authorisation. So again, it's quite new for us, but hopefully this will kind of show you where we are, what we're doing. So NICE will continue to make sure we have timely appraisals and evaluations of medicines for those new and significant indications which receive regulatory approval through the IRP. So to do this, we are reviewing development pipelines at a much earlier stage and cross-referencing some information identified within PharmaScan. So we're starting to do that slightly earlier than what IO do, just to make sure we're seeing what else is happening out there. When we identify these medicines, which might be relevant for the IRP, but might not be within UK PharmaScan, we will contact companies through some of our existing pipeline meetings, or we might write to you. And companies should therefore ensure that, as we've said, that information is all up-to-date information is recorded on UK PharmaScan, so we can actually pull that off. But we just want to show that we've got some collaboration there and that earlier horizon scanning that's actually taking place to make sure that we can pick up those technologies and to make sure that we produce timely guidance. And as you said, if medicines aren't recorded on UK PharmaScan, sorry, the dog has just walked in. Teach me for not shutting the door. If medicines aren't recorded on UKPS, it will obviously make it much harder for us to produce timely guidance. And it's something that we may not be able to achieve. So just want to kind of set out our stall for what we're doing there. So I want to talk about our processes at NICE, some of the guiding principles for how we identify topics, what our eligibility criteria, how we select and route them are. So we have a topic selection manual. This was first published in January 2022. That feels like a long time ago now. It was 2 years ago. And this manual focuses on our processes for topic selection for medicines and health technologies. The topic selection process is designed to make sure that NICE guidance is developed on topics that reflect national priorities for health and care and was developed in line with NICE's principles. We're in the middle of a transformation journey at NICE, which is reviewing our approach to horizon scanning and topic prioritisation. I'll go on to explain a little bit more about that in a few slides, but as we undergo that transformation, we'll continue to utilise the manual for medicines topic selection as it's published on the website at the moment. So how do we identify our priorities at NICE? And as the IoT team have explained, their role in how they support NICE and how they draw topics in for horizon scanning, I wanted to talk a bit more about this. So this diagram shows the outside influences that are important for NICE when identifying our priorities and how we draw in that intelligence for our consideration. So one thing that's huge for us, and when we talk about medicines, is policy. So the national policy is important, and when we look at the voluntary scheme, which was recently published for branded medicines, pricing, access and growth, the 2024 was just updated, and that requires NICE to look at all medicines that are new to the UK market or have a significant new therapeutic indication. So that's really key in driving what we look at and what we select for evaluation at NICE. We're also talk to clinical leaders, and it can be common for clinical experts to recognise a gap and identify an area that could be suitable for NICE guidance. So that has an influence. Also, what do commissioners need? NHS England and the integrated commissioning boards, they may alert or ask NICE to evaluate a specific technology, and that's something that is important. Like, what does the system need? And that goes on to say, system partners like the Department of Health and Social Care, they may alert or ask NICE to evaluate a specific medicine. Patient groups and the patient voice is really important too, and what is happening in the system on a patient level is really important and useful intelligence for us to pull in as we seek to identify our priorities. So how do we identify topics? So the team have talked in great detail about their work, but the manual describes how we identify these suitable medicines and how we draw that information in from various sources. So predominantly, the Innovation Observatory carry out the horizon scanning function for NICE for medicines, which focuses on technologies that are due to get a license within 24 months or 2 years. So that's where we get our predominant main source of information. Also, UK Pharma Scan, we have access to that as well. So it's something that we use on a day-to-day basis, and it's really, really important that companies input information in there about their licensing plans for medicines, because that's intel that NICE also draw on as well. We sometimes get notifications from clinicians or companies that might want us to consider a specific medicine. We can then marry up that intelligence, share it with IO, make sure we receive a briefing at the right time. And as I mentioned before, there are other sources such as NHS England, NHS Blood and Transplant, Academic Health Service networks. They may contact us directly about a topic that's felt to be important and meet system priorities. We'll then take that into consideration as part of our processes. So as I alluded to before, we have very clear eligibility criteria. IO talked about their remit and how they apply the eligibility criteria for the work that they undertake for NICE. And as I said, for medicines, it's very much driven by the 2024 voluntary scheme for branded medicines, pricing and access, meaning that all new active substances in their first indication or those that have extensions to their marketing authorization to add a significant new therapeutic indication would be considered to be eligible for a NICE evaluation. And that's all done under the kind of remit that you've also got to be getting regulatory approval within 24 months for us to pick those up. So on the flip side, there are also topics that aren't usually eligible to be considered for a technology appraisal or a highly specialised technologies evaluation. So obviously, medicines that are not going to get a regulatory approval within 24 months, unlicensed medicines, off-label medicines, new generics or biosimilars, and also antimicrobials. There are technologies that are going to be used for national proactive screening and vaccinations. So as we step on from that, so when we've looked at what is eligible, how then actually do we select and route technologies into our work programme for an evaluation? So the team at IO talked about the briefings that they developed for us. That's really key for us. That's that first point. We'll see the technology and start to say, actually, should we select this or not? Does it, if it meets our eligibility criteria, should we select it? And the briefings are so important for our decisions. It can include a wealth of information from hard data sources, soft intel, and as well as the information that's been provided by pharmaceutical companies. So within the topic selection manual, this is our selection criteria. So medicines that meet the eligibility criteria are selected, except when there is a clear rationale not to do so. So what do I mean by there is a clear rationale not to do so? So it could be that there is a change to the dose, the formulation or administration that doesn't actually change the clinical or the cost effectiveness of the medicine. So that would be a clear reason for us not to do an evaluation. There could also be access via another policy. So it could be the Medicines for Children policy, or the NHS England might be developing a new policy in that area. And through our engagement with partners at NHS England, we would kind of ascertain that information and decide whether or not it would be appropriate for us to do an evaluation. And it might be in that case that it wouldn't be. It could also be that it might be better to assess a medicine within a guideline. So it's not always straightforward that technologies would have a standalone technology evaluation. It could be that there's other work going on across NICE that means a guideline is more suitable. And that would mean that we wouldn't do that single technology evaluation. So everything that is selected is routed to the technology appraisal work programme unless the highly specialised technologies criteria is met. So I'm just going to touch on what the highly specialised technologies criteria is for very distinct, clear criteria that a technology would be assessed against. So for it to meet the HST criteria, the medicine, the medicine for which the is being developed, the disease would have to be very rare. There'd normally be no more than 300 people in England who would be eligible for the medicine and its licensed indication. And if there are other indications, there'd be no more than 500 across all those indications. The very rare disease, which the technology has indicated, significantly shortens life or severely impairs quality of life. And there'd also have to be no other satisfactory treatment options available on the market, or the technology is likely to offer some significant additional benefit over existing treatment options. So those are the 4 criteria. I'm going to talk about how we get to those routing decisions. So we can't talk about selection and routing without looking at our scoping process. So scoping is the preliminary work that helps us to resolve any uncertainty about a selection decision or a routing decision and helps us to gather that input from stakeholders about a medicine. It's the work that happens before the evaluation starts, and it gives us an opportunity to ask questions and validate what should or shouldn't be included in the final evaluation. There may also be a need to discuss a topic at our topic selection oversight panel. So if we feel that the topic should be perhaps should not be selected for evaluation, or it should be routed as a highly specialised technology, that medicine, a briefing would be prepared and a discussion would happen at our topic selection oversight panel. So the TSOP, otherwise known as, it's part of our governance structure to ensure rigour, fairness and transparency of the medicines routing and selection decisions. And there are changes ahead that are going to impact TSOP, as it's currently known, and its responsibilities, which will transfer to the new prioritisation board, which I'm going to touch on now. So it's really like, what's the future? What else is happening with topic selection at NICE? So one of our core strategic aims is to focus on what matters most. And to achieve this core aim, we've been working to bring together all the parts of NICE which have some responsibility for topic selection. So that covers the medicines team. And making sure we want to build and develop a NICE-wide intelligence to select topics that matter the most. This change affects all guidance output, so from medicines, which are TAs and HSTs, to health tech and to clinical guidelines. We will develop guidance and advice on topics where we can make the biggest difference to patient care, including areas that achieve the biggest health gains, realise the greatest cost savings, or make the largest productivity improvements. I'm going to talk about the elements that impact topic selection for medicines here. So what's been happening to achieve this aim? So to underpin our ambition to focus on what matters most, over the past 12 to 18 months, leaders and teams across the organisation have been working to develop a common prioritisation framework. So that's really making sure that products and routing decisions are considered by NICE in a consistent and transparent way. Work has been undergoing to establish an integrated prioritisation board, and the medicines team will interact with the prioritisation board in exactly the same way as the current topic selection oversight panel. Topics will be presented for routing or selection decisions, and the prioritisation board will be responsible for making those decisions. So deciding whether or not something should be selected for the work programme or whether or not technology meets the highly specialised technologies criteria. And we will also be publishing an annual forward view, and this will report on the decisions made, planned prioritisation and future changes and innovation. So a lot of work has been going on in this space, and it does impact us in the medicines team, but mostly it's business as usual. We will just be working closely with the prioritisation board rather than the current topic selection oversight panel. So if you do want to know more about this work, there is a consultation that's ongoing at the moment, and the consultation seeks views on our plans to make the topic selection and prioritisation for NICE more integrated, effective and timely. It runs through to the 4th of April, which I don't think is that far away, a couple of weeks. And there'll be an integrated prioritisation manual. This will replace the topic selection manual that I have mentioned, and also that we hope to formally establish the prioritisation board by the end of May. There is a link there. It's very tiny. You won't be able to click on it, but we'll send it out afterwards as well. So people who've attended today, or if you get the recording, you can also kind of see how this connects in with what we're doing with the medicines at NICE. Okay, that's I don't have a thank you or a contact us slide. I missed that one out. But I'll stop sharing now and pass over to Jill for some questions. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Steph. That was great. We've obviously got quite a lot of questions, some of which I'm going to pass back to you to talk to on behalf of NICE, and some of which I think are for our IO team. So first of all, I think this is quite a simple one. Do we have any plans to integrate UK PharmaScan into the MIND database?
The PharmaScan is an independent database, and the MIND as well is purely independent as well. Both databases have different criteria for registering technologies. You cannot register on our MIND database because it's internally facing within the IO strictly. The PharmaScan is for companies to register their technologies there so that other horizon scanning organizations, including the IO and the NHS England, can also have access to it. So we do not have any plans to integrate because they are totally two independent databases. But we obtain information that support our MIND database from PharmaScan. So like we will continue to request for companies to register with PharmaScan so that we can obtain data from there and then populate the records that we have on our database.
Right, thanks, Shola. We've got a few questions about the highly specialised technology criteria, including updates on a planned consultation and ongoing discussions. Could I throw that one to you, Steph?
Yeah, so it's not something that's strictly that's happening right now. It is in the pipeline. So the first stage is to look at our single topic selection function, as I've walked through, run that consultation up to the start of April and establish the single prioritisation board with that responsibility for selecting topics for the whole of the organisation. Any planned consultation on the highly specialised technologies criteria will be run by our clinical directorate. Jonathan Benger, as our chief medical officer, will be driving that forward. It's I can't comment at this stage as to what's happening when. It's in the pipeline as such, but I think the main thing for the organisation is really to set up this prioritisation board, get that well established, and then if there are any changes or consultation ahead around the highly specialised technologies, that would be towards the back end of the year as such. But at the moment, there's nothing confirmed. So. I think I contradicted myself, but
I feel wiser. Okay, so we've got a question which I think might be for both IO and NICE, which is about biosimilars, which were mentioned as out of scope. And does that include indications that may not have been reimbursed with the originator molecule, or is there still a need for a biosimilar to prove cost effectiveness?
I think I'll let Steph take that one.
I always find biosimilars challenging. So obviously they're not, if the originator is well, that's not, the word isn't approved. If you've got positive guidance, and obviously that's not something that we would look at. There is changes happening in this space. I would need to have a look a little bit more at this, but not, we wouldn't strictly look at the biosimilars if the originator has positive guidance. There might be a question or a discussion if there is no guidance, already in that space. As we have had, a few topics where we've had to have conversations. It's not an easy conversation to have. It is a developing space for us at the moment.
Thank you. So I think this is one for my IO team. How can CROs and market access consultancy services that support pharma companies get involved with the IO? Do we have any processes or incentives for collaboration?
Not that I'm aware of, no, but if a market access consultancy organization wants to contact us to discuss any of the technologies in development by the company that they are supporting, then they could get in touch with us. But the first step will be to register that technology on PharmaScan, to create an entry in PharmaScan, and then get in touch with us to discuss the plans for market access. But on any other projects that we may be working on, then that will be a separate conversation. But please do get in touch with us, and then we'll discuss this further. Thank you.
Thanks, Shola. So I've got a few questions around topic selection, which I think are probably for you, Steph. So there's one around how we take account of a promising innovative medicine designation in terms of does it prioritise or guarantee a drug for a NICE appraisal? There's one around the timelines for the topic selection team making a decision beyond receiving a briefing from IO. And there's one around whether you consider looking at a cost comparison being more appropriate. So I don't know if you could just speak a little bit more about what plays into that topic selection process, Steph.
You might have to prompt me, Jill. So when it comes to the promising innovative medicines, obviously that's really important intel for us, and it's something that we do track and measure. But predominantly, we're looking at that timely access, so looking at what the regulatory timelines are with the MHRA. We do pick up that intel, we do monitor and we do track it. It doesn't guarantee an evaluation, but obviously it's an important signal for us and some of that intel that we take into wider consideration. So that was the PIM question. The second part was, sorry.
I think there was just a question about timelines once you've received a briefing from us.
Yeah, so we aim to move things through quite quickly. We probably have about a month of a review, internal review. So when we receive the briefing, our internal team need to review that briefing, look at what else we've got in the work programme, decide whether or not we should select it. So that's a very much internal view. But we also take into consideration, you know, our partners at NHS England, you know, have they got a view when I talked earlier about policy, you know, is there some intel that they need to share with us about that medicine? So NHS England comment on all our selection decisions as well. So we need to give them time. But I think we can do it's about 6 to 8 weeks. We're trying to get as fast as we can. But you do have to account for, you know, give people time and space to respond to things, to move it through. But I'd hope we can do that in about 8 weeks, move things into the work programme.
Right. And it's a related question, but it comes to IO, I think. If companies license a medicine at a late stage of development where there's no pharma scan completed, is there anything the adopting company needs to do to help IO deliver their reports in a timely way? What constitutes as too late?
Essentially, we request that companies get in touch with us very early, even if the estimated date might be within 3 years or even beyond that. We request that companies get in touch with us early, and then as it moves closer to the date, then we can obtain more confirmation before 24 months, where we have to send a briefing to NICE. But if no pharma scan work has been created, no entry has been created, and you would like to get in touch with us still, please do so at the very earliest convenience. But we'll still hope that we can get it within before 24 months, so that we can send it to the topic selection team and they can begin their own internal process. But however, please reach out to us as soon as you can, and then we'll take it from there.
I would echo that as well. So we realise there's a lot of uncertainty for companies. You know, you might be waiting for decisions from global. Even if you're uncertain that actually this will come to fruition, trying to stick to those timelines of that notification and inputting into the information into PharmaScan as early as possible is really, really important. I think we'd probably all say we'd rather know about a medicine and then it kind of fall off, and you know that the plans may change, than the other way around, have that late notification, particularly, you know, with work programs and scheduling works. We need to have sufficient time to plan things into the work program. So I think the early notification better would be. I would echo that.
Thanks, Steph. I think we have one question which is asking about technologies which are non-medicines and combinations of medicines and devices. Now, I know we're not talking about devices today, but could we perhaps talk very briefly about combination medical and medical
health technologies with medicines as such? Yeah, that's fine. I mean, this is something that we get. They're not common, but we do receive those. So if we do receive a notification, I think IO would probably reach out to us about that, and we might have a really early conversation about whether or not it should be, you know, we should receive a briefing. And if we do receive a briefing, my team would certainly pick that up with relevant colleagues in the health tech teams, and this would be also where our prioritisation board would play a role, because obviously there's it's a bit of a chicken and egg, I think, when you come to looking at combination technologies. There definitely have to be a collaborative approach And I think that's something that we definitely got much better at over the last 2 years, at least, since we've got this new topic selection manual. We've got one aligned approach, but that they're not completely out of scope. I think it's just having the right conversations early on. Like I said, like I've said.
Thanks, Steph. I think we're moving towards the end now. Had lots of great questions. We do have several questions which sort of relate to how the regulatory landscape and pricing processes take account of making innovative medicines available for people living with disabilities. And I didn't know if you could perhaps speak to that a little bit, Steph, or if it's something that is sort of outside the scope of this webinar.
Yeah, it's outside the scope of this. So obviously, NICE, we can only react to what is being regulated. So, you know, I guess I can't really comment on what's happening at a regulation level. We're reactive in terms of when we do receive of notifications, and if we select something for the work programme, we do a thorough equality impact assessment. So when we scope, so the work that's done before the evaluation, we look at the equality impact, if any you know, groups of people would be disadvantaged as such. And then throughout the life cycle of an evaluation, it's something that we take very seriously, looking at the equality impact of that technology, you know, through the guidance development as well.
Thanks, Steph. That's really helpful, and it's great to hear you just explain a little bit about how seriously NICE takes that equity aspect of things. I think we're going to take one more question, and I think which is quite a technical one, and then we're going to I think say thank you very much to everyone. And that last question is just if a product's being explored in two highly related indications, can we request that NICE look at these together and don't conduct two separate technology appraisals? And how do we do that?
I smile because it does happen more frequently, and I think it's always tricky to unpick. It's not a clear-cut yes or no, so it's about having the conversation early on. So I think sometimes we get that intel through IO. Sometimes when we start to communicate with companies in that early topic selection stage, I would say when we do contact you about the technology, if there's two coming through at the same time, or if you've got one following through, you know, shortly afterwards, do let us know if there are specific preferences. I mean, I can't say yes, we can do it, because there's probably a lot for us to unpick. We've got to look at, you know, let alone looking at resourcing impact and as well. So the earlier the conversation, the better, and I can not lead on it, I would be making the decision, but collaborate with the right people across the organisation and the team to make that decision. We're all about being pragmatic when it comes to doing evaluations. If there's no reason to do two separate evaluations, why would we? But it does take a little bit of time to unpick. But NICE certainly appreciates a very honest conversation, and we wouldn't try and push anybody down a road if it didn't make sense and wasn't practical.
Thanks so much, Steph. And I think that reiterates the message of this webinar, which is please engage early, please engage often. We want to hear from you. That goes for all of us in this room. So thank you again, everyone, for attending. We really appreciate your time. We have recorded this, and we'll be sending you a link with the recording, and I think the slides also afterwards. Please do reach out to us if you have any questions that we haven't been able to address today, or you want to discuss things further. We've given you contact details for the IO, and we'd like to hear from you. And those contact details will be in the email that we send as a follow-up to everyone who registered. So on that note, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and thank you again.
Thank you very much.